Welcome, Andrew. Thank you so much for being a part of this series.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
So Andrew is the owner of YYC Cycle and YEG-Cycle.
Yeah.
There's 5 spin studios so far and plans to grow in the future.
Yeah, actually it just was announced for our 6th studio in the University District in Calgary for 2020. So yeah, always growing.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what YYC Cycle is and what you guys offer.
Yeah, both at YYC Cycle and YEG-Cycle, we're very proud to provide a platform for connection and community and impact, essentially.
So how do you go about creating that impact?
Yeah, we have a mantra on our wall that says we're not in the business of spin classes. Certainly what we have is spin studios, indoor fitness, but we're very proud to provide a community that is inviting to all different ages, athletic levels, and so on to come in, connect. It's that third space that a lot of people are craving to connect with other people, and then also providing that platform for them to make an impact, not only on each other when they come to the studio, but also when they leave those doors and on the communities that surround our studios.
So for the really small percentile of people who don't know what spin is, what is spin?
Yeah, I mean, spin's been around and indoor cycling's been around for a long time, since the 80s. And, as things have evolved, where we are at today is, to describe it to people, it's almost as if you're in a Vegas nightclub with spin bikes in the room. So it's a darker room. It's not brightly lit that everybody's just kind of staring at each other, that an experience that some people might have had before with spin. But, darker room, we have nightclub lighting system, nightclub sound system. And really it's an environment that people can fully immerse themselves into that experience.
How long is a typical spin class?
So our spin classes are between 44 and 46 minutes of working time, and then about 4 to 6 minutes of stretch. So in total, it's a 50-minute class that we offer.
Okay, cool. How many classes a week do you guys run?
Between the 5 studios that we have, we run about 220 spin classes a week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You started out, you said that you had entrepreneurial parents. Mm-hmm. What did your parents do, and did that inspire part of your entrepreneurial journey?
For sure. My parents are my superheroes, right? I think that I'm a dichotomy of both my mom and my dad. This I hope, amazing combination of the two of them. So my dad is a master chef from Vienna, Austria, and he had a challenging upbringing in Vienna and Austria, and he really wanted the opportunity to leave and go find other opportunities elsewhere, one of which was to learn a trade. So he learned how to cook, and at the age of 18, he became a master chef and has cooked for everybody from the Queen to my next door neighbor to Brad Pitt and so on. So, and kind of everybody in between. And he got to Canada, essentially with $70 in a knife set to Montreal, and that's where he met my mom. And my dad's he's owned restaurants, he's cooked in some of the biggest hotels, some of the biggest sporting arenas as far as, Spruce Meadows and so on. And also has been an entrepreneur, owning his own catering company now, Deluxe Catering in Calgary. And my mom on the other side, I always say from my dad's side, I get my time management. When I grew up, my dad was out of the house by 2, 3 in the morning to go and prep at the kitchen, and sometimes back at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 at night. But he did it for the family, and he did it for the love of us and the family. And my mom on the other side is she is in natural medicine and energy healing. So she's a reflexologist, she's a herbologist, she's a Reiki master. She now just finished up her yoga teacher training. So I kind of get my time management side from my dad. I mean, you can't put everything in the oven at the same time and expect it to taste good when it comes out. You have to put this in here, and 3 minutes later it's that. And my mom, I get that energy side of things.
So you started out playing football, but it sounds like it was kind of out of being compelled to do so, out of what you kind of thought people wanted you to do. How did you go from playing football and realizing that wasn't what you loved and going into first a garment business and then the spin business?
Yeah, growing up, I had asthma as a kid, so it's not the first thing that I tell people, but I mean, a lot of people will know now that we're doing this. When I grew up, I had asthma. I was allergic to everything that had fur, which is why I still have a pet snake that I've had since I was 8 years old. So they live a long time. And but at that point in time, my parents put me in competitive swimming. Then it was martial arts, and then it was rugby, and then it was football, and just a lot of activities that could build up my body and lungs and so on to kind of get past having asthma. And so in football, I started in grade 10 with football, and it was just something to do. And I remember trying out, and I had one of my best friends, Just Stagg from junior high school, and we tried out for the football team. And after kind of the first week, he had said, "Hey, it's not for me." And being the great best friend, I said, "Okay, give me one more week. Like, I'll try it a little bit longer. And if I don't like it, I'll quit too. I'll stop too." And ultimately at that point in time, I said, this was challenging. I felt like there was a lot of opportunity that could come from it. And, that trend has actually followed into even the decision of teaching spin. And so that got me into football, and I didn't stop. And then I had an opportunity to go and play for the University of Calgary, and played there for 6 years, redshirted a year, played there for 6 years, had an opportunity to go to the Montreal Alouettes in 2009 for training camp there. And, really it was, I never grew up wearing a football helmet and dreaming about playing pro football. And at that time, I did my international business degree at U of C, but I really had, I was conflicted. I didn't really want to go and work a 9-to-5 job. I wanted to find something that I was passionate about, that I could really own. And at that point in time, I also was going to some yoga studios in Calgary, and the owners of those yoga studios were opening up some spin concepts in Calgary, kind of the first boutique spin concepts in Calgary. And, they asked me if I wanted to be a spin instructor. At that point in time, it was kind of something on the side that I was very curious about. I hadn't done a lot of spin classes. I didn't necessarily love cardio. When I played football, I was 260 pounds. That 10-year challenge is an interesting one for me, because I look very different from 10 years ago, let alone 6 years ago. So to me, I thought, I love motivating people. Connection is everything to me. Energy is everything to me. And at the end of the day, just like football, when my best friend at that point in time said, "I'm going to quit," I thought, there's really nothing negative to come from this. Mm-hmm. So I'm only doing myself a disservice from jumping into this opportunity. And so at that point in time, I was, getting into the spin thing, but also training for what I thought training for pro football. But really, a lot of people thought it was awesome and it was cool and it was exciting that I was training for pro football, but it didn't really fill me up, right? I almost did it because I liked people saying like, "Oh, that's awesome, pro football, that would be great." And it was actually a relationship at that point in time that the person that I was with at that point in time kind of told me, what do you want to do? Football is one opportunity, but it doesn't seem like that's really what's rooted in your heart and your soul and what you're curious about and passionate about. And it's also an opportunity that I would be traveling a lot at that point in time. So I made the decision to step away from that dream that actually wasn't my dream. Mm-hmm. It was other people's dream, and really pursue and get more involved with spin. And so I jumped into that.
So was spin before that time, was it a big thing? Like, was it a growing trend? Because I feel like it's only been more recent years that it's really been a mainstream thing, or is that just you making that happen?
Well, I appreciate that. And there's many great studios in Calgary that are making it happen too. So, it's been really exciting to see what's happened, not only in the spin industry in Calgary, but also the fitness industry in Calgary as well. Spin's been around, like I said, since the 80s. It's just evolved itself. prior to, the studios that I stepped into and then YYC, when we kind of took that vision and said, made it ours and evolved it even more, and on the cultural standpoint and the experience within the room and what people are really feeling when they step in and interact with our brand. Prior to that, there was brands in the US that really started growing, and that was where those spin studios, the first ones that I taught at, that's where they kind of wanted to mimic, I mean, hey, success leaves clues, right? So look at other successful brands and models and so on. And that was what was being brought to Calgary. So, and since then, in the last 5 years, I mean, March 17th will be 5 years for us. It's been insane to see what's happening in the fitness industry.
So when we chatted before, you mentioned that you have a black belt in Hapkido.
Yeah.
Do you find that the time you spent in martial arts and the effort that you put into learning that and the discipline, did you learn skills that helped with your success in your business?
Yeah, I think specifically martial arts, for me, there was a component of discipline, a component of integrity, of a component of, if you say you're going to be somewhere, be there, There was a lot of aspects of martial arts that not only at the time when I was growing up kept me out of trouble, probably gave me an outlet to express myself, let's say physically, and let out emotions and so on through that process. But it was definitely a great stepping stone to the discipline that it takes to help navigate a company of our size now.
And then your first business, it sounds like, was a garment business.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it's one that I haven't really spoken a lot about, but it's really been a great foundation to understanding, expectations, a great understanding of what partnerships look like, and so on. So when I was finishing up university and training for pro football and getting into spin, I had an idea, and I had an idea that I explained to my trainer at the time about creating a garment that would put your body into proper posture. And so I had this idea, and I had my international business degree, and I wanted to use it for something. And so one thing led to another. I ended up partnering with a company from Winnipeg, and we started building this business to create products, textiles, and garments that would put your body into proper posture, that, some of which also had medical benefits to it as well. So I traveled between Calgary and Taiwan and China, and I learned a little bit of Chinese, and that was such a great experience. Doing business in Asia is so much about relationship, first and foremost, to business. And I had the privilege, I don't know if they had the privilege, but I had the privilege of singing on stage for 500 Taiwanese people in Taiwan for my business partner over there, his wedding. So like I said, I don't know if they had the privilege of hearing that, but I had the privilege of doing that. And it was a great experience. And I learned a lot of great tools and foundational lessons to what it means to grow business and also grow an effective partnership too.
Now, you had some difficulties along the way, some ups and downs with that business.
Yeah, I learned, and I also learned, some people know me as the man of many sayings, and I also learned a lot of sayings back then through that process, one of which was expectation is the root of all heartache. Comes from Shakespeare, but it really is that in a partnership, and really that was the experience with partnerships. Then I'll talk about the product side, but partnerships, it's very important in a business partnership, just as a personal partnership or a relationship, to make sure that expectations are clearly explained and clearly understood from both sides, so that you're not led to heartache, right? So in that situation, certainly there were promises that were made and expectations that were blown up of what company was going to do, and how much we could sell when the products arrived, which ended up, it ended up being 1/5 of what actually sold, which on a cash flow side really hindered our business. That I had to ask my dad for an allowance sometimes, at 24, 25 years old. And certainly that hurts pride, but I learned a lot of lessons on measuring expectations and clearly communicating expectations with those that you're doing business with, those that you're leading, and so on. On the product side, one of the products that we made was a hot and cold compression wrap. You could put it in the fridge, you can put it in the microwave. And, it's really interesting doing business with Asia. You really need to describe to the minutia of what that product's going to look like and how it's going to function. Essentially what they ended up doing, the product was a neoprene outer lining with a gel pack inside, and you would think they would make a pouch and then insert it and nicely stitch it. Well, no, they made a sandwich out of everything and then they just sewed right through it. So I got, it was on such a high, I got an order of 3,000 of these wraps, about $25,000 worth of product, of which I got investment for. And so it arrived. I had a great relationship with the manufacturer. This was going to be a big business deal. I already talked to distributors that would move those products, and we were really going to do it. It was going to be awesome. Then I didn't even test them out. I sent them to my distributor and so on, and he calls me back and he says, they're leaking. I said, what? Yeah, they're leaking. So what happened is they sewed right through the gel pack. The gel was leaking outside of these packs. So at that point in time, I had to be agile and really find a way to convince someone that's on the other side of the world that runs a manufacturing plant for multiple countries around the world for 10 times as many units as I ordered at that point in time, and convince them to pay for the products to be shipped back to China, to be remade, and then be shipped back to Calgary. I was successful with that, but it didn't come without a lot of tears at that time. I remember one morning I just called, 25 years old and calling my dad and crying to him on the phone, being like, this is never gonna work. Yeah, so I learned a few lessons along the way.
What are some things you did at that point to help restore your self-confidence and your confidence in the potential of the business?
I think at that point in time, I've had amazing role models as parents, where essentially, and they've owned restaurants and they've had successes in business and they've had failures in business and so on. So I've seen this process, and we just don't give up. It's the philosophy of it's never the problem that's the problem, it's your reaction to the problem has been something that's been ingrained in me. So certainly it comes with the emotions that come with failure and self-doubt and so on. But at the end of the day, I think at that point in time, it was role models of mom and dad that said, hey, listen, like this is what it is right now. And it's okay to feel what you're feeling, but what are we going to do about it? Mm-hmm. Let's find the best path that we think we can move forward and just go. Don't look back, just go, do it. And easier said than done in certain circumstances, but I think that was a huge thing to have that support of them.
So how did YYC Cycle get started?
As we talked about, this question of, do you want to be a spin instructor? And ultimately, I thought there was nothing negative to come from it, right? So jumped into it, and it was really like I hope that people can track back on my Instagram to see old pictures of me, but I was definitely not the figure of spin instruction at that point in time. 262 pounds, shaved head, on the bike, had to check the weight capacity of the bike. Like, I was a big dude on the bike, right? And I always tell people I was a unit on the bike. But at that point in time, we did a little bit of training back then. Nobody really knew what that boutique spin was, right? So we kind of did as best as we could in that training. And then it was up to us to build from there. And I started teaching classes and started really loving what was happening in that space. So much so that it became more than just the bike. In fact, I was talking with one of our first motivators we had, Alex Troniak, And we were sitting down at coffee, and I was, talking to her about this vision of YYC Cycle. And I was telling her that, the bike just became an accessory to what happened in that room. It was a platform for connection and positivity and passion and the community that it brought together. And she said, you got to write that down. That's like your mantra. And you look retrospectively on things that happen, and you're like, that was a good idea. And so now in all of our studios, you'll see that mantra on the wall and those words on the wall, that we're not in the business of spin classes. We're in the business of passion and positivity and community and authenticity and ultimately happiness, right? And so with that, backtracking there, I started teaching classes more and more, loving this experience of connecting people with the room. And then I saw people really go through a transformation, not only them, but myself. And at that point in time, I really wanted people to feel welcome in my classes, whether or not it was their first time on the bike or if they were a high-level athlete. And it's very easy sometimes, especially with social media and marketing out there, to compare your first chapter to someone's fifth chapter, to compare when you're starting something, to compare that with someone that's been doing it for 10 years. And so at that point in time, I really wanted to create a community. So I started calling people that came to my class the biker gang. And that just kind of grew from there. Whether or not people knew each other in the room, or whether or not you were old or young or fit, unfit to society's standards, because fit looks very different all over, to different ages, different colors, different sexual preferences. Like, I just wanted everybody to feel welcome in that space, and because it was so much more. And so that biker gang really grew from there, and we were on to something. And so I had some conversations with the owners of those studios and asked if there was an opportunity for me to be a part of that vision. And they had expressed that I could be a manager or work behind the front desk and so on. And that just wasn't the vision that I maybe had. So at that point in time, I understood what their expectations were. So I said, I'm going to do the best job that I can do, so that there may be another opportunity for me one day, whether or not I stay here and I just keep growing, or I leave, and there might be opportunities elsewhere. So at one point in time, we parted ways, and I was looking over my resume to be handed out to oil and gas companies. And meanwhile, I was teaching for an oil and gas company downtown. And it was at that point in time, I certainly didn't have the money to start up a spin studio alone. And I found out about two guys that were in oil and gas, and they were around my age, and saw spin becoming more popular, and wanted to have a business together, and wanted to have a spin studio. But the thing with that was that they had never taught it, right? So they didn't know the background of kind of the classes. Enter me, and we came together, and for the next 3.5 years, the three of us built that. And then from there, we just finished about 1.5 years buyout of one of our partners who approached us, and his vision for his life was going a different way, and he wanted us to buy him out. So we wanted to navigate that process in the best way possible, and wish him nothing but the best of luck and success in his life. And now Grady and I are looking forward to the future.
What's been your biggest struggle so far with building that business?
People. I think, and I say that as a question, because I think it's also the most exciting part. You need to be so diligent on the connection that you provide for your people and the guidance that you provide for your people. There's a saying of having 99% alignment and 1% vision. A lot of times in organizations, our company now is 270 people large, is who works with us and for us. And then the biker gang is thousands and thousands of people. And so to have that many people internally and make sure that they're aligned, you really need to make sure that you're leading your leaders, and you're leading by example, and then continuing to execute that growth on leadership strategies, meeting pulses, creating systems to make sure that when Grady and I aren't there as the owners, people are still experiencing the same vibe that they had with Studio One in Kensington.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So do you and your business partners have skills or talents that benefit each other or accent each other, like holes that you fill?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'd be nothing without Grady, and I would take a bullet for him in a second. Him and I balance each other out really, really well. And in fact, it was interesting when we went through this transition of splitting a partnership and having 3 partners become 2. I think it's really important to own the roles that you have in business, and then also be able to trust your partners. Hold them accountable to what they say they're going to do, but really trust that they can get it done. Grady and I also through the transition did personality tests and so on, and we just saw that sometimes maybe I'm a little bit more eager and he's a little bit more reserved, and maybe I speak a little bit quicker than he does, and so sometimes I need to know when to shut my mouth and try to practice being the last one to speak. Still practicing it. But I know that, for instance, for Grady, he's an incredibly intelligent individual. And so he may not respond with his opinion or his thoughts right away, but I know that when he comes back to me with an idea, it's worth listening to. It's well thought out. We've done disc analyses of ourselves, and we're very opposite on the scale. And so I think it's important to find someone that has the same vision and the same drive for success and that ultimate goal, right? That whole 99% alignment, 1% vision. For him and I, we have to be 99% aligned behind that 1% vision. But at the same time, it's really great to have someone that balances me out, for sure. If there was 2 of me, I'm sure we'd destroy each other.
So from when you started teaching spin to now, it sounds like you've built quite a bit of a following, a quite loyal following, a bit of a personal brand. Do you attribute that entirely just to your natural personality, or were there things you did along the way to help build that following and build that awareness for your personal brand that you were conscious of?
Thank you. First of all, and it's been a fun journey with that. And I think that when you talk about timing's a big thing. I truly believe that I'm really passionate about what happens in that room. And so I think building my own personal brand just came from my excitement being in that room and being around people and taking selfies with people. If people go down my Instagram, it looks very juvenile. In the beginning, it's all selfies posted with other people that came to my classes. And that was the way that I grew that community. And so that grew my personal brand a little bit. And then through that, had the opportunity to be an ambassador for Lululemon. And then after that, had an opportunity to be an ambassador for Sporting Life, and had the opportunity to do more public speaking and so on. And so certainly I think I have the personality that worked with that to be a leader in that sense. But it's also our amazing team. Honestly, I would not be here without the incredible leadership that we have underneath us, and the leadership that they have underneath them that goes all the way down to our crew and all the way down to our motivators, So it's the brand has helped build me personally as a brand, but I'm always very conscious that my purpose is to continue building other people up within the brand too. So it seems like it's a little bit of a full circle on that standpoint.
When you're hiring management and the leaders in your organization, what things do you look at, and do you practice the hire fast, fire fast mentality?
Yeah, I mean, up to now in our company, we've looked for incredibly powerful women. So that's a great thing. We've had really, really great men that have been part of our organization, but it's, when Grady and I talk about this, I'm 32 years old, our biggest demographic is 25 to 34. So I'm actually 2 years away from not being the demographic as far as age. And our demographic's 70% female, 30% male. And the men are growing, which is great because they're starting to see that this is a really great outlet to to have fitness in their life and cardio in their life and meet new people and have that connection and so on, and give back and make an impact on the community. But, you know, for us, it's important that we have people that are leading this organization and this company that really resonate with our riders, right? Certainly I will always have a market, and Grady will always have a market, but with our leadership, we look for personality first. Skill can always be trained. We look for people that have, a lot of our leadership have been with us for a long time and have grown within the company, whether or not they started as a crew and then now they're motivators and now they're senior leadership or whatever it is. So we look for them that they've been a part of our company for a while. They understand why we do what we do, not the what as far as spin. And the hire slow and fire fast, I think more and more we're protective of the culture that we have internally. So we do take a little bit longer to find those people that come and join our internal community. And certainly we have an incredible amount of A players that if someone comes in and they don't resonate with our culture, we make decisions pretty quickly with that. We always have conversations around it so that hopefully those people are not shocked when a decision is made to part ways with someone. Nobody ever likes getting fired, you know, but we try to do our best when that happens to make it a positive experience. And yeah.
I imagine with that many people, it has to be a fairly regular that you'll have to let people go or they'll have to quit. So you must have some degree of turnover with that large a number of staff.
We're actually very lucky. We have pretty low turnover. There's certainly been parts of the business and times in the business where you go through a little bit of growing pains. When we open up new studios, sometimes, for instance, we need, 17 new motivators and we need 35 new, staff. And so sometimes people come in there and it just might not be the right fit for them to be in it. But we've been very successful with our leadership program and our mentorship program that we have within the company to make sure that we really onboard people properly, that they can make the decision for themselves if this is the right family for them to be in. And it's very apparent if it's not. And typically someone won't get past an interview or our multiple interviews if they're not a great fit, right? Yeah.
So you guys really pride yourself on community involvement. What kind of things do you like to do to support the community around you and to give back?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most exciting things about what we do. When we first started the studios, we wanted to start off making an impact on the community and attracting the right type of people into our doors as far as riders that felt that was important as well. So what we did is we started our giver campaigns. And what the giver campaigns are is that whenever we open up our first studio or any studio, the first full week that we're open, we host $10 classes, and all that money we donate to charities. Further to that, every Friday night we have what we call our giver class. And that's a $10 class. And at the end of the year, we donate for every person that attends there $10 per person to the charity. We take it one step further and really give ownership to the biker gang on where that money goes towards. So every quarter we put it out on social media and actually get nominations first for registered charities. And then we do a vote for who that quarterly giver charity is going to be. And that's every studio, Calgary and Edmonton. And between that giver charities and our charity classes that we do and our fundraising events over the last 4.5, almost 5 years, we've raised and donated over $500,000 to those organizations. When you look at the barriers that break down creating this biker gang and who they support, sometimes it's babies, sometimes it's minorities, sometimes it's animals, sometimes it's people that are experience domestic violence. And so that really is I think what means so much to everybody that's involved in this community. And it really is a thread that's woven within every single interaction in our studio, every single class that we have, and certainly every single giver charity that we raise money for.
What kind of time and work did you have to put in when you were getting the studios off the ground?
All the time. All the time and all the work. You know, when we started, you know, the three business partners, when we started, it was, so this is how it worked. One of us would wake up at 4:45 in the morning and get to the studio at 5 a.m. Okay. That person would work until 1:30 in the afternoon. That person then would come back with another one of the partners and open up the studio for the evening. And the person that opened that morning would go home early, and then we would rotate through that process every single day. It was about 10 months before we hired our first person to come and help us out there. And I think it's so important to know from the ground up, how can you put expectations? When I talk about expectations being the root of all heartache, how can I put expectations on, you know, people within our business when I haven't experienced it, you know, washing bathrooms and folding towels and greeting riders that come in and understanding the flow of the studios and so on. So it was a lot of time commitment and very well worth it.
So where do you see YYC Cycle and yourself in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, 10 years, that's a great question. You know, Grady and I have a big vision for the studios, and, you know, our goal is to have 15 studios across Canada within 10 years. I always have a disclaimer with that, though, because culture is so important to us that, you know, one of my good mentors told me that, you know, they'd rather grow a great company than a big company. And I think we will never grow bigger than our people allow us to. You know, we'd be happy staying with 5, soon to be 6 studios if that meant that our culture remained intact and we could have a touch point in that impact, not only on our internal community, but the external community. But certainly we have a big vision for it. I think the fact that we're not in the business of spin classes and we do provide that space for people to connect and create relationships and create impact and create physical and emotional change within themselves, there's a global opportunity with that. You know, when you talk about how important mental health is and finding outlets to provide growth with mental health and, you know, areas in Canada where we'll focus on first, that people could really benefit from this third space. You know, Starbucks talks a lot about it, but this third space that people can connect and unwind and de-stress or let out anxiety or, you know, feel better about themselves or be empowered by that person teaching the class. We have a big vision for this. And so within the next 10 years, we're going to keep growing this and keep growing our leaders underneath ourselves. For myself, you know, I want to have opportunities to speak about what we've done and what we've built culturally and expand that to, you know, different audiences. I love public speaking. I want to be involved with more public speaking, whether or not that's to students, to young entrepreneurs that are getting going, or business owners that want to look at how they can shift their business and get out of the what they do and the why they do it, and how they can take, you know, one class per week and turn that into $500,000 donated to charities that really, you know, you give not to receive, but you receive so much more when you give. So I want to be able to have that platform in the future to speak to different groups and organizations about infusing that culture within those organizations. I want to mentor entrepreneurs to see them succeed in business. You know, certainly I want to invest in other businesses one day and that I believe in and see that process happen again. I get so hungry listening to new entrepreneurs about how they can look at their businesses differently to find success and also purpose with it. And I want to keep teaching spin. And I'm going to be, you're going to see me when I'm 75 years old in a park somewhere teaching to pigeons, I'm sure. And you'll be like, that's that Andrew guy. He's still, you know, he might be not all up there, but he is still motivating someone in this world. You know, in that room, in that environment, that's my flow, that's my meditation, that's my release, that's my connection. Sometimes it's the only hour out of the day that I don't have my devices. And so I'll be teaching spin until I can't anymore. Yeah.
Very cool. You've had a fascinating story. I'm super excited to see you open 10 more studios. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Our first sponsor is Symbol Syndication, which is a video production company that I started. We do video production and online marketing for businesses of all sizes, ranging from solopreneurs to Fortune 500 companies. Our second sponsor is Gravity Cafe. They've been gracious enough to give us their space. The coffee's awesome. They have live music 3 nights a week. The beer's great. It's an awesome place to come hang out. Another sponsor of the Ambition Project is Business Link. Business Link is Alberta's entrepreneurial hub. They are a nonprofit organization that helps people navigate the steps towards starting their own businesses. Just because you're in business for yourself doesn't mean you're in business by yourself. Business Link's team of in-house startup experts are there to support you all along the way. Our next sponsor is the Better Business Bureau. Your BBB helps businesses build visibility, credibility, savings, leads, and community through BBB accreditation while funding free marketplace services with more than 1 million instances of service to consumers every year. Visit bbb.org/Calgary to learn more today.